Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Jasmine Bootle. Mrs. Jasmine, how are you doing, ma?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Jasmine. Firstly, you are a holistic healer. You are also an Irish Gispe, and you're also a medium tarot card reader. Can you please, Mrs. Jasmine, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, ma?
Okay, so I'm not actually a medium. I use tools to connect to the deceased instead. Um but I read tarot cards. I've read tarot cards since I was about 13 years old. I do read palms as well, and I do numerology. I also work with the death-induced communication, and I work with a pendulum. And as for the Irish Gypsy, it's a part of my heritage. That's kind of where I get the doing the, I guess you'd call it fortune telling to start with, and I use it to help people answer questions that they um maybe need to find, or if somebody wants to know something about their love life, about their career, about their health, even just about their future in any way. I will either read my cards, or I'm empathic, so I use the cards alongside that, which is reading people's energy. And I use the cards, the pendulum, and my empathic senses to do readings to help people find answers or figure out situations that they're in and to see where it's going to go, kind of, right? So it's all centered around helping people find answers and guidance, is what basically I attempt to do through the readings that I do.
That's very, very lovely, Mrs. Jasmine. And what also caught my eye was the point you said, you also work with possibly communication and stuff like that. Thank you so much, ma. And I would also like to ask, if you have written any book, connecting to this reading of cards, Mrs. Jasmine.
I actually haven't wrote a book yet. I'm kind of in the process of it. I've taught classes. So I have taught tarot classes on how to read the cards. And in that class, I've taught other things alongside, like I throw it in as like an extra, is how to do the death induced communication on their own, so that if they want to do it privately, they can, right? So that, because it is something that can be very personal, right? So sometimes
Mm,
people don't want to have to express their emotions maybe in front of somebody they don't know that well. So I teach it to them so that they can do it in the privacy of their own home, and they can do it so that they're not feeling uncomfortable talking to somebody like me that they just met or only know a little bit, right?
yeah, I completely agree with you. It's definitely not easy. It also works with emotions, and that will also dive me to the point of communication, induced death communication. A lot of people today have a lot of loved ones. Even I myself have had my mother I've lost a long time ago. And when it comes to induced communication, it caught someone eye because someone could believe that they could still have this communication that they've had several years ago. And that was why I would like to dive to this point, Mrs. Jasmine. What do you think is an induced death communication? And how do you think, it is different from other forms of divine or spiritual communication, Mrs. Jasmine?
Okay, so I'll start with how I created it. The reason for it was my father. I have also lost him, and lots of
Hmm.
friends as well, but my father obviously was the biggest one because we were very close. Now, when he died, there was some unanswered questions that were very important to me to know the answers to. So I sought out mediums and things like that, and they just weren't able to answer the questions, right? So randomly, I was watching a show, a paranormal show, where they were using the pendulum to ask if there was any spirits in the house. And I took that and made it deeper, and I took it so that I could use it to speak with my father with the pendulum and the cards instead of just the way they were doing it. I just kind of changed it into a way that worked for me. So what I do with it is I use the pendulum, I use the board here, and then on my board, this is Hecate. She's the goddess of divination, so she's powerful in that way. But anyways, I use it. I ask if the spirit or person that you want to talk to is with us and would like to talk to us, and it'll say yes or no. It has said no before, which means the person doesn't want to talk, whatever, right? And then once they say yes, if I'm doing it one on one, I allow the other person to use the pendulum to ask yes or no questions to the person, the deceased person, to get the answers that they're looking for. But if they want more than answers, like yes or no, we take out the tarot cards and we ask the person if they have any messages or guidance as well. So basically, they have control over what is being asked, and they're in control of the communication. So it's different from mediumship and everything else because you have control over who you're speaking to, what is being said, and yeah, basically, it's more you have the control and you're able to actually get the answers that you're looking for, opposed to a medium trying to find the answers and not actually being able to connect properly, right? Because they can't always connect with people the way we think they can. Do you know what I mean? Like we can't just go
Mm,
up to them and be like, can you tell me if my aunt did this right before my dad died? They can't just pop that out of their head, right? So I had to find a way to answer these questions because I couldn't live anymore with the I don't know, with the feeling of how I felt and the needing to know the answers. So basically, I took what I seen from a paranormal show and turned it into a way to help people get the answers that they need to move forward in life, right? Instead of always wondering that something. Do you know what I mean? Because somebody, you always wonder something that has to do with that. Or even if you just want to know if they're okay, a lot of people ask that. They want to know all kinds of things, right? So basically, it's a way of communicating with them, but you have the control, so you're able to get the exact answers that you're looking for, opposed to going to medium after medium after medium, trying to receive those answers and not getting them. So that's kind of how it works and why I do it.
it's very, very, very inspiring and loving. It's also very emotional. I guess when you said you can't just ask a direct question anyhow, but you can definitely ask how the person is doing and stuff like that, which brings some calm and emotion and even some type of deeper connection with someone I've definitely lose for a very, very long time. It's definitely not easy. It makes someone even come alive and even have the sense of hope. And I would also like to dive to the point of protection. I do not know, Mrs. Jasmine, if there is any, probably I do not know if there is any backside in induced death communication, and if there is also protection that is also included when someone to get into this induced death communication. I would like to ask Mrs. Jasmine, what safeguards do you think are in place to protect vulnerable individuals who may seek or who wants to seek and induce this communication, Mrs. Jasmine?
So, protection wise, if you mean like bringing negative energies through or maybe not talking to the right person, it's the way that I ask, if like the way that I ask them to come through. sets in the protection because I'm not just asking, like, so basically, I'm not just asking, like, I can't be like, Dad, are you here? Right? I'm asking person, can you specifically the specific person, and if they're willing to talk to us and stuff like that. And then also, I put safeguards in place by using grounding and protective crystals that I put around as well to keep any negative energies from coming. But it's mostly by the way that I ask them to come through that is protecting the person from any negative entities coming through, because you have to ask a certain way in order for it to be protected, I guess you could say, right? Because that's the thing with when people play with Ouija boards, they are asking, but they're not asking the right way, which does bring through negative energies, right? So it's the way you ask, and it is also, I do put protection around as well, just to make sure, because obviously I'm the one facilitating it, so I'm the one that's going to get the negative energy. So basically I make sure with my crystals, with the way I ask, and I do use salt and put it around to make sure that nothing can come through that's negative.
Hmm, I think I learned from that. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jasmine. And also, some people will feel like, even I might say, I've never done anything like the induced death communication. I'm hearing it for the first time. I might want to have the interest tomorrow that I want to even talk, but I want to talk to my mother. And how do you, some people who want to do this for the first time, how do you think someone can prepare for their first induced death communication session, Mrs. Jasmine?
What I tell them to do is write down all the questions that they want to ask
Hmm.
so that they're prepared, because sometimes if you're just caught off the spot, you might miss something that you wanted to ask, and then later you forget, and then later you're like, "Oh, I really wanted to ask that and I forgot," right? So mostly I tell people to prepare for it in the way of writing down what they want out of it, like what they want to ask, what they want to know, all that stuff, so that when they come, they are prepared and they know what they want out of the out of the reading, I guess you could say, right? So yeah, basically I tell them beforehand to write everything down. So I make the appointment, and one I don't just do it right away. I have, but I usually try to get them to write it down so that they don't forget things, right? I mean, I have done some, like I did a lady from Botswana who I did right on the spot because she was just very, very upset, and I just wanted to help her right away. But most of the time, I do tell people to write it down.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Jasmine. And lastly, Mrs. Jasmine, I would like to go to the point of death. We all know there is no person on earth that can overcome death. Death is something that will surely happen. And what people usually question every single time is what usually happen after death? And that is the question that continues to evolve. And probably scientists have get to get some research, likewise religion, cultures to have their belief what happens after death. I would like to ask from your own personal beliefs, from what you've experienced from the induced death communication, Mrs. Jasmine, what do you believe happens after death based on your experience with the induced death communication, Mrs. Jasmine?
Okay, so basically, and this is even without that, I believe that we are, and like we have, our soul is an energy, right? So when we pass, our energy doesn't go, like it doesn't die, it can't, right? It has to go somewhere. So our energy, I believe, goes to what you would think of as heaven. And the way I see heaven is kind of like heaven is basically your own version of peace, right? But like they are, I feel like they're up there, but they're down here too, right? So basically, I feel like their energy can go where it wants. But I also believe that when people are ready, they will reincarnate. So I believe that um, when people, okay, so like how my dad has passed, I'm not over it. I have upsetness about it. So he's not going to reincarnate because he feels like he still needs to be there for me, right? So when they feel like they don't have to protect anybody anymore, or they are free of anything that could, like, free of their family's upsetness or that kind of stuff, then they'll reincarnate back into the world, right? Because you have that choice, in my opinion, right? And a lot of them don't reincarnate for a long time. Usually, when you read about it, scientists say they reincarnate. Usually, it takes about 100 years because a person needs them. Like, people need them, so they don't reincarnate because their soul doesn't want to yet. That's what I kind of see it as, is that your soul is energy that does go to a place of heaven, but it still can come around because it's energy, right? And energy can kind of be everywhere. I don't know if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense, Mrs. Jasmine. I think that's give a little bit insight. Energy is what drives a lot of things on Earth, even ourselves today. If the energy is not there, the vibe will not be there for someone to do what he or she wants to do. And lastly, Mrs. Jasmine, there's a question I normally ask ma. There, from the ancestors, from the forefathers, there are a lot of things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Jasmine?
Um, Culturally speaking, in like my Irish gypsy culture, this is something that's practiced often.
Mm.
So not the induced death communication part, but the divination part. It's practiced often, right? It's a part of our culture, is a way of communicating with our guides, a way of knowing what might happen. It's a way of just kind of giving you peace and relief, or depending on the answer, at least it's letting you know something's coming, right? Um, and I do things a certain way due to my superstitions that follow the culture that I am involved in. Like, I do everything in threes, and I believe everything comes to you in threes, bad or good. So, say three good things would happen to you, three bad things would happen to you. It all depends on just how life is going. I knock on wood three times, I say prayers three times. It's just that part is definitely a part of the culture that I have. But what I would like to say most about it is, I know it sounds really weird when I explain the induced death communication, but I would definitely, anybody who needs answers, I would suggest trying it because it will relieve that stress, or that thing in the back of your mind that you think about when you go to bed at night and you can't sleep because you just need to know, or you just need to hear from that person. So basically, I feel like anybody who's grieving, this is something that helps them, will help you with your grief, and will help you find the answers that you seek. And also, it allows you to have the control over all of the communication, which I believe brings more hope to you than a medium where you're unsure what's going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it brings more solid, accurate advice, and which also brings relief and helps you move on from whatever it is that you need to move on from, going forward from the grief, because I know how hard it really truly is, right?
Mm.
And I know that when you lose somebody, it's not just they pass, there's so much more afterwards that has to go on. And then after that, then the grieving starts. And then you still have to live life every day and still have to, raise your kids, do everything, and act like you're okay when you're not okay. So that's why like I said, I had to create this because of these things.
I
I don't know if that
completely,
makes sense.
it definitely makes sense, Mrs. Jasmine. It's definitely not easy. With this toughness that is in life, sometimes there are some connection, one we definitely wish he or she has. Sometimes I never have the opportunity to have such communication with my mother. I do not know if this can definitely work, but it definitely brings some kind of connection that one needs. And I also want to sincerely thank you, Mrs. Jasmine, for the opportunity, for speaking on this induced death communication, for making people get educated that you could definitely, communicate with someone that you believe you've lost a long time ago, someone that you truly love. I want to sincerely thank you for the time, Mrs. Jasmine. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for letting me explain it because I want to like that's what I'm writing about because I want people to be able to um relieve their grief any way I can because I have definitely suffered through a lot of it. So I just want to help people. That's my main goal in life is to help people. I don't know, it's just always been that way. I like to help people. So I try my best in every way possible. So thank you for having me on so that I could talk about that as well.
All right, ma'am. Have a wonderful day, ma'am. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.